going to join us, and we'll get started. There's Vice Chair Cloutier. Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September 14, 2022 meeting of the Transit Commission. We've only received regrets from Commissioner Caricato at this point, and I'll ask the Commission Coordinator, Eric, if you could please proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Brockington.
Here.
Commissioner Caricato. Commissioner Gower.
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Here.
Commissioner McKenney.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Curry.
Here.
Commissioner Tierney. Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Wright Gilbert.
Good morning.
Vice Chair Cloutier.
Yeah.
Chair Hubley.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you, Eric, for that. Before we move into the agenda, folks, I'm going to ask if we could take a moment of silence for the passing of the Queen. Okay, thank you. Is there any declarations of interest?
Mr. Chair, point of privilege, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, since our last meeting, this commission, along with the public, heard and saw evidence in the form of WhatsApp messages at the LRT public inquiry that you, along with the former General Manager of Transportation Services, John Manconi, the City Manager, and Jim Watson, were aware of the issues with the LRT during the so-called 12 days of testing prior to the launch of LRT Line 1. You and the others previously mentioned knew of the myriad of issues during testing, along with the reduced pass mark, but you did not inform the other members of this Transit Commission. Rather, we had to find out at the same time as public inquiry. You concealed and withheld that information, even as our brand new $2.3 billion system began to fail day after day, week after week, with new issues cropping up to this day. While the rest of this commission and the public cast about in the darkness, attempting to understand how this system could be so flawed, you stayed silent. You could have and should have shared that information with us, even if it was in camera, so that we could be properly informed and fulfill our mandate as transit commissioners to provide overall guidance and direction to the Transportation Services Department on all issues relating to the operation of public transit. So, at this final meeting of this term of Transit Commission, I'm not going to ask you to explain your reasoning. No explanation that you could come up with would undo this. I am, however, asking you to unequivocally apologize to this commission and to the public for concealing and withholding this information from us.
Thank you, Commissioner. In fact, any information that I know through that time was all shared with Council during in-camera briefings. Yes, decisions were made based on legal advice to not share with citizen commissioners all the information that councillors had. That's understood. That's been explained by our legal services. But to the best of my knowledge, there's no information that I had that wasn't subsequently shared with councillors. So I get your frustration. I get the frustration of everybody with this, but I'm not aware of anything that I personally had knowledge of that was not shared. And I think that came out a lot in the evidence that was presented by different people, subject matter experts and so on at the inquiry. And we'll wait for the report from the inquiry before council decides what they want to do with that information. And certainly if the inquiry has the same feelings as you, then I would definitely have to consider your request. But at this point, I just urge everybody to wait for the report for the inquiry.
So
if
just to
that's
be
okay,
clear,
we'll
Mr.
move on.
Sorry, just to be clear, Mr. Chair, you will not apologize for withholding information from the public and from commissioners. Just to be clear, in-camera
I
meetings
did
of
not
trans-
withhold
I am
information.
speaking, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
I
No,
am
that's-
speaking. Do not interrupt me, please. It is rude. I am speaking. In-camera
Finish your
briefings
point,
of,
please.
excuse me, in-camera briefings of Transit Commission are confidential. You could have shared that information with citizen commissioners during in-camera briefings. Nothing you can say other than an unequivocal apology is going to get you out of this. So for the record, you will not apologize to this commission, the entire commission, and the
Commissioner,
public for withholding
as I
that
said,
information.
As I said, the decision to not brief citizen commissioners, and you've been briefed by David White, our city solicitor, as to why you're not being briefed on information. There was several different ways of asking that question that it was asked and answered over and over. It wasn't my decision to not brief you or the other citizen commissioners. Nowhere is it saying that I made that choice that you should not be briefed. The decision was made based on the legal advice that was being received at the time. I'll leave it to the explanation that David gave you. I don't want to miss any of his key points in it. We can see if we can get that resent to you if you need it. But at this point, I'm not ready to discuss what's coming out in the inquiry report until we receive it.
Well, at least not here, perhaps in a WhatsApp message. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we did the declarations of interest. Can we approve the minutes of the Transit Commission meeting on Wednesday, June 15, 22? Are they confirmed?
Confirmed.
Okay, response to inquiry. And the inquiry was the ridership forecast for federal public servants and post-secondary students. Is that fine? Or Commissioner Brockington, I think that was your inquiry. Did you, are you good with that, or did you want to try to have a motion to raise it?
I appreciate the report we got back. I do have one minor follow-up question. Chair, I don't know if we should park it till the end or whether I could just ask the question.
If it's one minor question, please go ahead and then we'll move on to the updates.
Thank you. So first of all, to Madame Amical, thank you for the reply to the inquiry I posed in June. And I think the information you've provided is very good. Thank you. There's a portion of my inquiry that talked about federal public servants. And your answer estimates that prior to COVID, 30,000 to 35,000 public servants were taking public transit on average per day. My question in part of the inquiry was asking you to estimate ridership now coming out of COVID. I understand the complexities of trying to get an accurate estimate, but could you just talk to this a little further? Pre-COVID, it was 30 to 35,000. What do you estimate we're seeing right now? Understanding we still have basically a work-at-home model, some hybrid in some locations. Are you able to comment on this with any greater data?
Thank you, Chair. I will speak in French, and I have my colleague here, Pat, who can complete after me. Alors, juste pour votre information.
Just for your information, Councillor, since we published this document, we received information saying that the federal employees will be back here at work 1, 2, or maybe 3 days per week, and that started last Tuesday. That's when we launched the return. Each department manages this separately, so we'll try to get this information to see how many that represent. So the data that you quoted are right for the pre-pandemic, but since the return to work, we don't have any more data. Also, I can tell you that I'll share that in my update later on. We took the initiative to try and get even more information so that we can better estimate the ridership for the rest of the year and for the years to come.
Thank you, Madame Amica. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I think as we start to plan the 2023 budget, these estimates have to be as close to bang on as possible. But thank you for the research that you've done. I appreciate the answer that you provided.
Good, thank you. Sorry, I see a whole bunch of hands going up, so I guess we have to hold this item. We'll come back to it. We're going to need a motion with 2/3 support to add it to the agenda, though. So, Councillor Curry, you're a commission member. Do you want to move a motion that this be held and put on the agenda?
I could. I honestly was wondering if I could just ask the question I was going to ask anyways under 6.1. I feel like I don't really need to ask it here. And it's about the data.
You don't need to ask it here, then how about
I wonder
we do it elsewhere?
Yeah, Commissioner or Councillor Fleury might feel the same way. I don't know what his is, but mine is certainly coverable under 6.1.
Okay. Councillor Fleury, are you okay with asking your question under 6.1, or do you want to get a commission member to move a motion to hold this?
Sure. My question is relating to the UPass data provided in the inquiry. So whichever you feel is appropriate.
Okay, why don't we do it under 6, so then we don't have to hold this, okay? Is that fair enough?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now let's go into our update on the Confederation line and bus service from Transit Services. If staff could please proceed with the presentation.
Eric, tu vas pouvoir mettre la présentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see all your faces again. I'm pleased to be here with all of you today, and I'm very excited to update you on the great work our OC Transpo team did over the summer months, as well as what's coming up as we enter the fall. I'm pleased to be here with all of you for sure. But before I begin my update, I would like to recognize that today is the 3-year anniversary of the opening of the OTRAN Line 1. This project was a major step in OC Transpo's transformation. I'm incredibly proud of the teams that designed it, built, and now operates the system. As we all know, Line 1 has had its share of challenges, but the system is now stabilizing. This is in large part to the dedicated team at OC Transpo and our improved relationship with Rideau Transit Group. We will continue to improve LRT reliability for our customers. Next slide, please. Prochaine diapo, merci. Similar to past meetings, I will start today by providing a few key updates since our last meeting. Let's start with the ZEB funding. As you may recall, the city and the Canada Infrastructure Bank signed an agreement for $380 million investment to help finance up to 446 new OC Transpo zero-emission buses. I have some challenges with my Siri. This is a great news for the city, and I'm so proud of our team who worked on this important initiative. This loan means we can purchase new zero-emission buses at no additional cost to the city. We continue to work through the application for Infrastructure Canada Zero Emission Transit Fund. This is the federal funding that will pay for infrastructure cost, the new buses. We expect the agreement will close by the end of this year. I also have some good news for customers who have a community pass. Community passes now automatically renew every 2 years. The community pass offers customers registered in the Ontario Disability Support Program, or ODSP, a reduced price for both single ride fares and monthly passes. Community passes will only expire when a customer reaches the age of 65 or when they are no longer eligible for ODSP. Every customer's ODSP eligibility will be confirmed by our staff annually. From August 15th to 18th, OC Transpo special constables ran a fare enforcement blitz at Rideau station. We did this after hearing from our customer that people were jumping over the fare gates at Rideau station. Throughout the 4-day period, special constables dressed in plain clothes and monitored customers at the fare gates. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for that. The majority of customers paid their fares. Thank to those customers as well. 13 tickets were issued during the blitz for non-payment of fares, and special constables also assisted 4 customers who weren't tapping properly. As ridership continues to grow, customers can expect to see an increase in special constable presence across the transit system. We continue to make progress on bus operator equipment, and we launched a refresh equipment campaign at the start of September. As now, 90 new bus operators are trained and on the road, and 67 new bus operators started training in August. We are working hard to increase the number of operators as quickly as possible, which in turn will provide more reliable bus service for our customers. Next slide, please. At the last Transit Commission meeting, we agreed to update you on the Emergency Shelter Pass program. This program was approved by Council on December 21st, and OC Transpo and the Community and Social Services Department implemented it in March 2022. The pass gives no charge weekly and monthly transit passes to shelters for their clients. As of today, 6 agencies at 7 locations are participating. Over 2,300 passes have been distributed, with weekly passes being most common. We are grateful to work with our colleagues in CSSD and participating shelters on this important initiative to help residents in Ottawa. Implementing this program has been smooth and successful. Knowing customers' past, current and future transit patterns is key to planning our services. To help us understand our customer needs, we are launching today a transit usage survey with Nano's research. The survey will be part of the data we use to understand current ridership behavior. I'm pleased to let you know that OC Transpo is now a member of the International Bus Benchmarking Group. IBBG was established in 2004 as a confidential forum for medium and large bus organizations from around the world to learn from each other. One moment, please. This is another way that OC will ensure we are in line with industry, best standards, and practices. Next slide, please. This summer was very busy for OC Transpo. We were proud to bring customers to and from many major events. The first time since 2019, from Canada Day, Blues Fest, Red Blacks Games, and other festival and activities. OC Transpo was there every step of the way. Our team worked so hard to meet the extra demand, and we had customer service staff on the ground to help customers. This was also the first summer that Ocean Line 1 service ran for these types of events, which presented many firsts for us. I'm pleased to say that the system runs smoothly as intended. We also learned a lot. Our staff adapted in real time and worked quickly to resolve issues. Extra bus service for events ran well, but it did put pressure on our overall service delivery. The added service for events, combined with our current bus operator shortage, did create challenges for our customers, including more trip cancellations than normal. Another cause for the increase in trip cancellations is the CLC requirements. We are working hard to increase the number of operators as quickly as possible, which in turn will provide more reliable bus service. Our recruitment process improved. We are hiring qualified operators more quickly to improve service delivery for our customers. In July and August, we had both planned and unplanned train line 1 closures, requiring our own bus service. In late July, the lightning strike impacted service delivery for several days. The wheel hub assembly issues also caused unplanned service adjustments. We provided regular updates to members of council and members of the Transit Commission during both events. I want to apologize for the inconvenience this caused our customers and thank them for their patience as our team worked with RTG to resolve the issues. In August, RTG performed planned proactive track and maintenance work over a 2-week period to improve the ride quality for our customers. Every light rail system requires regular proactive maintenance annually to ensure the long-term sustainability and reliability of the system. I'm happy to report the work went well and finished on schedule. As you can see, it was a busy summer for OC Transpo. I can tell you that our staff worked around the clock to make service run as smoothly as possible. I'm so proud of our team and what they accomplished this summer. Next slide, please. This month, we expanded our We Are Here to Take You There ridership marketing campaign. As you will recall, this campaign was approved by Council in the 2022 budget, and the objectives are to rebuild positive attitudes toward public transit in Ottawa and to increase ridership. The expanded campaign highlights 4 key benefits to taking transit. New improved OC Transpo features for customers. OC Transpo is the affordable and sustainable transportation choice. OC Transpo connects customers to local attractions, events, and experiences, and real-time customer information helps with travel planning. We are excited to showcase the important investment and improvements we are making to keep our city moving and improve our transit system. Now we are going to show you a short 1-minute video that highlights the campaign. Please. Thank you. Very, very nice. I hope that you can appreciate it. Now I will pass the floor to Troy Chowdhury, who will provide an overview of our monthly key performance indicators. And I would like maybe to take just a few seconds to thank all of you, because I will celebrate next month my first year here at OC Transpo. And I want to thank you very much for your support and for your collaboration with myself and my team. Thank you so much. Troy, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Madame Amilcar. Much appreciated. If we can go to the next slide, please, Eric, that'd be great. And then, yeah, so if we could move to the next slide too, that'd be great. So just as a reminder, this first slide here is just a general high-level dashboard type indicator of conventional transit services performance. So with respect to the rail service delivery, we are experiencing stable and consistent service above the 97 to 98% since March, with the exception of July, which I'll elaborate upon shortly. Bus service delivery continues to improve as a result of the increased recruitment and training initiatives that Madame Amilcar mentioned, as well as a result of the continued stabilization of our bus fleet. However, we do recognize that there is room to improve in this area, and we're all focused on making sure that happens. And then lastly, in terms of a ridership trend, we continue to see increased ridership above the previous year at approximately 50% of the pre-pandemic levels. So if we go to the next slide, I'll elaborate upon each one of these moving forward now. So this is a graph that you're used to seeing. And as I just mentioned, since March, the rail service delivery has been operating at very, very high performance levels, in the 98 to 99% range. Leading into July, we experienced 4 continuous months at or above 99%. While Canada Day and Blues Fest saw real positive performance, July's performance was impacted by the July 24th lightning strike and the associated repairs to the overhead catenary system, or OCS. Following the lightning strike, Council, Commission, customers were provided updates throughout the week as service was incrementally increased, with full service returning Friday, July 29th. As well as previously reported, in the month of August, we saw the early closures associated with the maintenance activities that had to be deferred from June as a result of supply chain issues. These are referenced as, if you're looking at the chart, those green dots on there, those are all those pre-planned early closures and the associated implementation of R1 bus service. And as Madam Amilcar already mentioned, once again, just like to thank our customers for their patience and understanding as this important maintenance activity, these more important maintenance activities were undertaken. Following the maintenance activities, we did see a return of that high degree of reliability, and that's continued so far into September. So I know this is up to September 4th at 99%, and I can say that, that's continued for the following week as well. You go to the next slide, please, Eric. Thank you. So with respect to the LRV availability, this slide shows the number of single vehicles or cars. So it's, each train is 2 cars, but this tracks the number of cars available for service. So with respect to the LR availability, we experienced a strong and stable fleet numbers leading into July. As per memos issued to Council and Commission in July and August, the vehicle fleet was temporarily and proactively reduced as a result of an issue found with 1 axle hub on 1 vehicle. This temporary fleet reduction allowed our maintainer to proactively inspect all high mileage vehicles, then followed by inspections for all remaining vehicles, and implement an enhanced inspection and replacement program, allowing for the continued safe and reliable operation of the fleet. While the inspections are ongoing, Alstom continues to be proactive in changing out high mileage axle hubs, and was able to return the fleet availability back to 30 plus vehicles, 15 trains available for service on a daily basis. Overall, our service requirements has and continue to be met, and we fully expect that this trend of having more vehicles available than what is required will continue. The next slide, please, Eric. So recall, this is the daily snapshot of our fleet of vehicles. This one being from September 12th, so on the Monday. And as we mentioned at previous Transit Commission meetings, this is just a snapshot in time, and changes occur, on a daily, if not on an hourly basis. So of the 11 vehicles that were not available for service on this day, 5 were unavailable on a short-term basis for the following reasons, which include axle hub inspections, 30-kilometer inspections, and there was one other vehicle that was in for a window leak, and there was replacing a seal on a window. 4 vehicles were unavailable on a medium-term basis due to the 300,000 kilometer inspections and axle replacements. And then finally, when we reported this previously, 2 remain unavailable on long-term basis, and these are the result of the 2 derailments. The next slide, please, Eric. And as I mentioned earlier at our dashboard, bus service delivery, we have seen improvement since the May-June timeframe. And we recognize, though, that the performance levels that we strive to achieve are not necessarily what our customers expect. So we're pleased that we're seeing an improvement, and the recruitment and those initiatives are paying off. But we know that we need to continue to focus on that recruitment and keep that moving forward. We did provide an update on this in August, but we fully expect that with the ongoing recruitment initiatives that we'll see our reliability continue to improve in the weeks ahead as more operators are added to our complement, and we'll be able to provide more service. Next slide, please. This moving into now, we're moving into our bus fleet availability. So great work by our maintenance team to stabilize the bus requirements both in the AM and PM. You can see we're very, very consistent. September can be a challenging month, but our team is monitoring very, very closely the progress. So we want to maintain and sustain this positive trend in terms of our bus availability. So this slide here is showing the morning bus availability. The black line obviously is our requirements, and you see that the number of vehicles available is almost every day is exceeding that. The next slide, Eric, if you move to, is showing the afternoon peak availability. A little bit more variability there, but again, if you just go back, is the AM and PM, and that's the PM one. That's the afternoon bus availability. You can see fairly consistent as well too. A little bit more variability there, but consistently above those numbers, and we want to keep it there. Moving to the last 2 slides, we talk about ridership and fare revenue. So you can go to the next slide, Eric. That'd be great. So with respect to, this is ridership. So with respect to ridership in July was 3.3 million trips, which is 49% of the pre-pandemic levels. As mentioned in a memo to the Transit Commission last month, June ridership was at 56% of ridership levels. This change in trend, we believe, may reflect a difference in the rates of some ridership groups where their travel needs in the summer are different than other seasons. We will be watching our ridership levels very, very closely, and obviously in the recovery rates as well in August and September. And once that information is available, we'll be providing Transit Commission and the Council that updated information. Moving on to fare revenue, the last slide. July fare revenue was 7.1 million, up from 4.9 the previous year. Similar trends exist in terms of an increase over the previous year. However, that slight decrease in revenue recovery rate in July compared to June of the current year. As I mentioned, we're going to be watching these very, very closely with all the changes in the not demographics, but the changes in ridership in terms of federal government workers as well as students, the 2 big cohorts. We'll be watching that very, very closely, and as soon as that information is available, we'll make sure we'll be providing that to Commission and Council. I think that's it for the presentation, so thank you very much.
Renee, were you wrapping up, or is that it for the staff presentation?
That's it for this part, and as you know, we will have, after the questions, we can present the presentation for the para-Transpo buses.
Yes, of course. Okay, so we'll open it up to questions then. We have no delegations. I want to thank Dan from TRA for being here. I believe he has another commitment this morning, so we only have him for a little while. So if anybody has questions for him, please try to get on here early. Okay, sorry, Councillor Fleury, we're going to commission members first. So Commissioner Wright Gilbert, go ahead.
Thank you. Noting that Dan only has limited time, but thank you for being here. I'll ask my questions in a bit of a different order. The issue with the axle hubs that caused us to remove 22 LRVs, light rail vehicles, from service in August, it was earlier confirmed that this is the same issue that caused the derailment in August of last year. So clearly the increased inspection regime is not enough to mitigate this issue. Other than replacing the assembly itself on all of the LRVs, what's the forward plan to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Chair, je peux répondre en partie, et puis Richard.
Chair, I'm going to answer part of this. Thank you very much for your question. So, first of all, RTG has informed us that the incident with the hub assembly is similar to what happened during the first derailment in 2021. And the mitigation measures that are in place are working because there's only one vehicle in the entire fleet that has had this issue. However, there are many initiatives that have been launched since then. For example, continuing inspections proactively, and they have been more numerous. Decisions have also been made to proactively replace these hub assemblies after a certain number of kilometers. And we're working with our partners to determine what the underlying cause of this issue is. So we're currently trying to correct this problem. We're also working with our partners to have a tool installed on each train so as to detect vibrations that could be unusual and which could be a precursor of a problem. And I'm speaking in the conditional because up until now, despite this incident, despite the fact that we can say that there is a link, this is only a single incident, and our experts are working on determining the underlying cause so that we can continue to do the work that's necessary. To answer your question more specifically, other mitigation measures have been put into place in a proactive way.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that it was only one train. It was only one train that had this issue. But I think we need to look at this from the perspective of the customers. It only takes one train. It only takes one train with this issue that apparently continues to keep cropping up to derail again. So from the public's perspective, while I can appreciate and respect that you're saying it's only one train, it's not a massive issue, from the riding public perspective, that is not going to make them feel better. It only takes one train. So I appreciate that there are mitigation measures that are being put in place, that there's going to be tools to be installed to detect unusual vibrations. I want us to be very sensitive to the public's unease with respect to our LRT and the safety thereof. Whether it's justified or logical doesn't matter. It's how the public feels. And we need to ensure that when we are talking about a train that had the same issue that caused, or a similar issue as to what caused the August derailment, we aren't downplaying that, because that's a form of gaslighting. And I think we need to be very, very careful. If we could talk about the survey that's being conducted by Nanos, how is this survey being conducted? Is it going to be online? Are there people in stations? Is it both?
Chair, so within our Transit Commission, many suggestions have been made, including by Councillor Kavanagh, to use our staff and to ask people about their habits. So in a very reactive manner, we have done this within our team. And when we compiled the information, we realized that it was not necessarily statistically speaking. So we decided to use a specialized firm who will do phone calls. And Pat, correct me if we're also doing it online, but there will be phone calls, and then a report will be issued. And this is one of the tools that we're going to use. It's not the only tool we'll be using, but it's one of the tools we'll be using in our ridership projections.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the delay in me responding to your response time. My French is not quite yet good enough, so I'm using the translation tool. We'll get there. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that it's going to be online. It needs to be as accessible as possible for our customers, and so I appreciate that. Bit of a sticky wicket point here. The ad campaign. Can you please remind me how much we're spending on the ad campaign, both the contract and the TV and radio spots?
Chair, on avait eu de du conseil l'approbation d'aller.
The council approved a budget of $625,000 to do these ad campaigns, and we're currently undertaking step one, or we've done step one, and we're currently undertaking step two. And 2/3 of the budget has been used for the campaign that's currently underway.
Okay. So since this ad campaign launched on both radio and television, I've been receiving a lot of messages and emails from people who have seen the ads. The campaign is not being received well. People are feeling as though the ads and biological extension OC Transpo are gaslighting them in their experiences. It's a bit tone deaf.
Mr. Chair, on a point of personal privilege, the term gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in the victim's mind. Typically, gaslighters are seeking to gain power and control over the other person by distorting reality and forcing them to question their own judgment and intuition. I want to understand if this is a suggestion that is something that our staff are purposefully trying to do. Is that what you are asserting?
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I think that's the first time you've ever spoken to me, so nice to hear your voice. I am not asserting that the staff is doing this on purpose. I'm trying to explain the feelings that have been relayed to me by our customers. These are words that they have used, and I am trying to explain that and relay that to staff.
So you are not asserting that yourself. You're saying that people who may not know and understand the term gaslighting are using that, but not you.
No, that's it. That's exactly what I just said.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're very welcome. So to get back to my point is that the campaign's not being received well. Was there any thought given to acknowledging the difficulties that customers have experienced, that we as a public transit system have experienced over the last several years? Has any thought been given to acknowledging that in our campaign?
Chair, I think that these negative things can be seen as opportunities. I'm a positive person by nature, and I sincerely believe that our riders see what we're doing. They see our will, and I trust their judgment. I'm very confident that we're doing what's necessary in order to have the opportunity to have colleagues throughout the world, whether it's within the UTP or the BBG. This is the right thing, and perhaps it has not been well received by some people. But I am an expert in public transit, and I know that it's always positive when we speak about public transit. It's good for the earth. We have seen tornadoes and all of the meteorological events that have cost us a great deal. We're doing our part, and I think it's by speaking about these things and by improving the system And this is why our team is working hard every day to improve service. And yes, we need to talk about it. And yes, people need to continue taking public transit.
I'm not debating whether or not public transit is good for, combating the effects of climate change. I'm a huge proponent of public transit and reducing the use of cars and personal vehicles. The issue, I think, is partially with the tagline of "We never stop running." I'm not sure, but I'm raising this for your awareness. I'm raising the feedback that I've received over the past couple of days. It's been a mountain of feedback. My last question is about seniors rates. So on buses and LRT, it's my understanding that when seniors board buses on Wednesdays and Sundays, on the days that are free for them, when they board the bus, they're not supposed to touch or tap their Presto pass. They're supposed to board at the front. The driver tell the driver I'm a senior, and the driver waves them through. But that when they're at the LRT stations, they tap their Presto card because they have a senior's pass, and they don't get charged. So the issue is, that's been brought to my attention, is that some seniors don't necessarily know that, if they take the LRT really frequently, they don't know that they're not supposed to tap their Presto card on the bus, boarding at the back, whatever. Why are we not using, and therefore they're getting charged for riding the bus on Wednesdays and Sundays. Why are we not using the exact same system for both bus and LRT for the Presto machines, so that these seniors are not being unnecessarily charged and then have to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to get a refund?
That's time.
Chair, may I ask to Pat to provide an answer, please?
Thanks, Renee. Thank you, Chair. We're in the process right now of replacing the technology that we have on buses to be up to the same level as the technology that we have at the fare gates. That's begun to roll out on the buses right now. You might see a very small number of red smart card readers on buses. There's a very small number out right now. We're doing some preliminary testing. When the testing is all clear, there'll be a very fast conversion of all of the old life expired green smart card readers to the new red ones, which have that capability. And from that point on, we will be able to ask our customers who are seniors to always tap on every vehicle.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, next up is Commissioner Curry, please.
Mr. Chair, the question I said I might ask at 6.1, I think could best be asked here, because one of the things that we talk about a lot in the tech park is that the direction of traffic for buses is often looked at in terms of who's going downtown, students going to Carleton U and Ottawa U, but there are 540 companies in the tech park where people are coming out to work out in Canada North. And we talked about getting better data. We talked about that a little bit earlier as well. And I'm wondering where that stands for bus service in particular and gathering data, because the Canada North Tech Park Transportation Committee is certainly keen to get as much as we can from those 540 companies.
Renee, would you like me to?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Chair, we've got a number of data sources that will be helpful to us as we do that work, and as more people who work in Canada North also return to the office and resume traveling on OC Transpo. Most directly, we'll have the counts of the people who get on all of the buses that are serving there and exactly at which stop they get off. We may be able to draw some conclusions then. We'll certainly know the time and the location. We'll be collecting that. We do collect that information continuously. In the telephone survey that I spoke about, we will be asking people some general questions about where they live, where they're traveling to, which will allow us to give some overall ideas of how different people traveling to different parts of the city might have different return to office expectations. The other survey that's beginning right about now is the city's, in partnership with the City of Gatineau and the two provinces, the regional origin destination travel survey that'll be going on for the next several months that really looks fundamentally at where do people live, where are they traveling to, what mode do they travel on now, what options do they have, and that is another big important piece of data that hasn't been updated for quite some time. And of course, we'll be very happy, as we always are, to work with the Canada North Business Association and with any individual employers, as we have before, about their employees' own travel needs.
Great. Well, thank you for that. They are very keen as things continually evolve as to who's going back for what percentages, for sure. I would also just like to say thank you so much to Pat and Renee for all of the back and forth we've had with different residences asking about specific bus lines when we had a little bit of a challenge there in the late summer. I know residents really appreciated that very specific and detailed response that was provided, specifically what happened to a route and what was going to happen to it. So I just wanted to thank you very much for that. Residents have been very pleased with the response and attention to their own specific issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Renee, for the update. I do enjoy I like how you position your updates. I find them very helpful. Obviously, we all know that there have been struggles, certainly with transit in the city. That not showing up late, people unable to really count on transit, but certainly, I certainly see the efforts made in moving forward and in ensuring that we have the drivers that we need, and hopefully eventually we recover from those past decisions to cut transit. Wasn't on you, but we have cut transit in this city, removed many buses when we launched the LRT, and this is the legacy that we're dealing with today. So I do appreciate the update, and I like the way that it's framed. And I agree with you that we have to be positive about transit so that we, as we're trying to make transit better in this city, we're also giving people the confidence that we're trying to make transit better in this city. So thank you for that. On the emergency shelters, that very good news about the uptake there. I just wonder if the free passes have been extended to families who are in motels, if we consider that shelter users. Chair Pat will answer this question, please.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Chair, we will collaborate with anyone who's in a shelter, anyone who's meets the definitions that the council set. For those specifics, we can certainly check with our colleagues in CSSD and make sure that we're reaching out to everyone we possibly can. Okay.
Is that something you could circle back around with me? I mean,
we will do that.
All of the commission, but I'm really, I just think that it could be an oversight not to have reached out into the motels, which really are shelters that are housing, it's like close to 300, just over 300 families. So I would like to make sure that they have access to the pass, the free passes as well.
Certainly will. Mr. Chair, I've just got a quick note. We are already working on this with our colleagues in CSSD. We will do everything we can under the authority being given by council, and if, as the direction was from council, if we find that there are changes in the direction required, we'll come back to you and specify that. But what Councillor McKenney is saying is exactly what we're trying to do with this program.
Okay, I just wonder what the issue is in terms of process. Why wouldn't we just go into the motels and start handing out those passes? Not like they can afford a pass, not like we're losing any money, right? Like, these are families. We've got over 700 children living in those motels, and 300 families. So for them to have access to transit passes, to be able to move around the city, to be able to get to recreation services, to be able to get to school, to be able to, just get around our city would make such an impact in their lives. So I just don't want to, we're in September and this launched, in this year. So I guess I'm just looking for more reassurance that if I go over to a motel in a week or two, that those families who desperately need transit to get around are going to have it.
And
Si je
so,
peux, Chair.
Yep.
Si je peux, Chair.
If I may, Chair, I understand very well what Councillor McKenney is saying. Last week, I spent an entire day with Donald Gray, my colleague. We visited various shelters, and I understand the fact that when there's no space in the shelters, people are put in motels, even in a former prison, which is not far from the Rideau Center.
Yeah.
So I understand this dynamic, and I also understand, having seen this issue firsthand. So, Councillor, definitely we're going to work so that these people are not forgotten, because we mustn't forget them.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Renee. No other questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. If I may just add on to that, that might help clarify something here. Pat, your area, are they not working with the different agencies that support everybody that's in the shelters? So wouldn't that network that knows who is in what hotel and what their name is and everything, is that not who you're dealing with to distribute these passes?
yes, yes, Mr. Chair, that's exactly what we're doing, and we're just continuing to work through if there are any procedural problems within those agencies or within different parts of the city. We're just working side by side with our colleagues to clear any obstacles that exist. And this is the work we're doing. It's us and our colleagues from CSSD together working with the individual agencies that run the shelters, some of which, of course, are run by the city, as the councillor has mentioned.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Next up is Councillor Gower, please.
Thank you, Chair. There were a couple slides showing morning versus afternoon bus availability, and Mr. Charter mentioned a higher degree of variability in delivering service in the afternoon. I was wondering why there's a difference, or why there's a difference between morning and afternoon availability.
Chair, au fait, lorsque nous
Mr. Chair, when we provide morning service, for various reasons, buses can have breakdown issues. So during the afternoon peak, we're not always able to have repaired the buses that broke down during the morning service. And so if you take a look at the graphics we provided, we always try to have more buses than necessary so that we're able to deal with this issue and so that we have the leeway we need.
Is there a target when, actually, no, I'll skip that question. I wanted to ask Mr. Halber, since he's here and needs to leave, what are you and your organization specifically involved in on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis right now? What services are you providing to OC Transpo?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Our scope has had many different facets, all sort of revolving around the continued monitoring of, excuse me, of return to service and the robustness of the operations and maintenance function of Line 1 at OC Transpo, focused mostly on the contractor team, but also looking to make sure that those functions are properly integrated within the OC Transpo organization as well, and that the lessons learned throughout the return to service process, the update to the safety management system and all the things that we talked about late last year as Line 1 came back online, that those things were successfully integrated. So specifically, sir, the the work has been around sort of the granular, being involved in daily operations and maintenance meetings, looking at technical documentation for the quality documentation, as we call it, for replacement of LRV components, looking at change control board requests, very, very tactical stuff, very, very granular stuff, to make sure that the overall plans, the overall requirements of the return to service plan were fulfilled. So in other words, when the contractor team said that it was going to increase maintenance reliability, or was going to increase maintenance planning, was going to increase the quality processes associated with the light rail vehicles, we have been engaged on a daily basis to make sure that we see evidence of that, and in instances where we think there's a gap, to highlight that, and to call that out as part of those discussions, as part of those meetings. At a higher level, we've also been involved in monitoring, again, the LRV and infrastructure maintenance processes, the maintenance planning processes. So I think it was Madam Amilcar mentioned earlier the summer rail infrastructure campaign and the maintenance campaign. So we had an opportunity, had really a mandate, I suppose, to make sure that the planning for that effort, the recovery from the lightning strike, those types of things, were conducted in such a way that they were consistent with the return to service plan. So in other words, that we saw that return to service plan, we saw the safety plan being implemented as they were written.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like still very much involved and engaged throughout the process. So thank you.
Yeah, at a couple different levels. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and my last question was for staff, and it's about OC Transpo and school service, I guess mostly high school service. How big of a component is that this year? How many buses are we running for high schools or elementary schools? And how has that changed from the last school year?
Thanks, René
and Mr. Chair. We are running more school trips this year than we did last year, which was also more than we did the previous year. This was the request of the school board through their transportation, the 4 school boards through their 2 transportation agencies, because they were having difficulty with their contractors having enough staff for yellow school buses. So there are more customers traveling on OC Transpo as a result, that's traveling to and from schools. Those ridership figures will be reflected in the numbers we report. This is a source of good ridership for OC Transpo. A large fraction of our total ridership is people traveling to and from high school. I don't have to hand the exact number of trips that we run each day, the exact number of buses that we have in the fleet in order to provide that service, but we can, if they're helpful to you, Councillor, we can get those numbers and send them to you later on.
Yeah, I'm just curious about trends year to year. And another question on that, on fare revenue from OSTA, do we receive like a regular student pass fare per rider, or how does that work in terms of revenue?
So we receive full fare revenue one way or another. There's 2 different ways that this is administered. One is that in some cases OSTA and CTS and the CTSO for the French language schools purchase passes from us. We sell them Presto passes in bulk, but at the standard rate. And the other is, in some cases, the customers are buying their own passes if it's at their own choice to travel on transit. And again, they're buying passes at the regular youth fare.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Kavanagh, and Vice Chair Cloutier is going to take over the meeting for a few moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kavanagh, please. Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate the fact that we're reaching out to look beyond commuting, since commuting is obviously going to change, and we do need to look at transit another way. So I appreciate that. In terms of the surveying that you're doing, are you checking on what stops people from using the transit system, such as, is it price point or is it reliability? What are you asking them that in terms of getting them to use transit system?
Oui, Chair, je vais commencer et Pat pourra continuer.
I'll start and Pat can complete if I forgot something. What we want to know, namely, is were people users before, and did they start again to use transit? Did they stop during COVID? Do they have cars at home? So we just want to see what their intent is, and we even go as far as to ask them what their intent is for the rest of the year and for the upcoming years. This is how we'll be able to know where they come from and what is their current behavior, what was it before, and we'll be asking what we should do more so that they remain with us, and what could we do to attract new clients too.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, because I'm looking at who's using the transit system, and we know that like frontline workers used it the most, and that was our top priority. But we need to build from there. And when I hear from residents, and I'm hearing a lot from residents lately, reliability is always the thing that they raise the most. So I know that's been challenging with the bus operators not having enough and canceled routes. That is, unfortunately, it only takes a couple of times when that happens and people get turned off, and then they don't want to take the system again. So it's going to be a long battle, I imagine. But the other concern I have is how much are we reaching out to the city as a whole in terms of connectivity of getting to bus stations, routes, and making sure that they're good, especially for seniors. I just want to make sure that connection is there too. As we're building the stage 2 transit system, I'm very conscious that we're planning developments where we're relying on people to use transit, and we have routes that I'm not sure yet if they're going to even be winter cleared. I'm not sure if we're going to have they're going to be lit at night. There's a whole bunch of reasons why people will not want to use the transit system, and those are some of them. So I know that's bigger picture, but that's down the road, but we need to look at that. Is that part of it? The like getting to the bus stop and safety measures.
Chair, une des activités que nous avons identifiées.
One of the activities we identified is to look at the routes and the upcoming extension of the LRT. That will give us a great opportunity to have all this. It's a long-term work, though, and this will allow us to rethink the service delivery throughout Ottawa, and we'll see how we can improve the service and get clients that would normally not use transit for the reason you just quoted. And we'll get back to you, of course, with the data on this.
Thank you. I would like to have a conversation with you about that. I work very closely with the Stage 2 team, but I think it would be worthwhile to talk to you directly, Renee, about this. Because that's what I'm hearing, and those are the top concerns. I want to say I appreciate that the renewal of the community pass, where it's no longer needed to be renewed every 2 years. I think that's really great. Anything we can do to encourage people to use the system is important. My last question is one I always ask, and then that is about apps to track when buses are coming so that people know when a bus is going to arrive and if there's any updates on that.
I think everyone will recognize that there's more good real-time information coming than there was earlier when we were in the last days of using our old dispatch and bus tracking system. We're completely over on the new system now. There are still steps to go ahead, and we think I'm convinced our app is showing its age, and we've got some plans we're working on to make further improvements. We haven't decided which foot to put forward first yet, but it's likely to be again at the fundamental data publication stage to make sure that we're putting data out in the current industry format, the best practice that all the apps can pick up. So we're working on all of this together, and it's a continuous improvement that doesn't stop, and it may never stop, because by the time we get to where we're heading right now, we'll probably have further to go after that.
Do we have any kind of timeline?
Continuous.
Okay.
Over the summer, though, we did get all of our buses onto the new dispatch system, which was a major step forward. That's something that we've been working on for about 8 years. So it's done. It's it's time to get ready and take the next step after that.
Okay, I'll keep asking till we have all the information. You know that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Merci, Conseillère Kavanagh. Next is Commissioner Olson, et ensuite Conseiller Fleury. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Madame Amilcar, merci de votre présentation, surtout la mise.
Thank you, Mrs. Amilcar, for your presentation, as well your message on the OC Transpo operation.
Of bus delivery, bus availability. For example, 96.7% in July, 95.3% in August. And I take it those are aggregate cross-system numbers. And I just wondered if there was more detail, more granular basis at which the availability was being measured. So per region of the city or per ward, is that information that you have or information that you're looking at collecting?
Chair, Vice Chair, je vais essayer de répondre. Je suis pas certaine si j'ai tout saisi.
I'll try to answer. I'm not sure if I understood very well. For the availability of buses, we were always correct, although we realized that there was a gap between AM and PM, but it was a capacity to deliver the program on the road. There were some cancellation of routes, so I've explained why before with CTC and etc. But this is starting to be behind us with the 90 new operators that we have recruited. But sometimes we may have up to 300 cancellations per day out of 8,300 routes. So this weekend, for instance, it was extraordinary. Sunday, I think only 20 routes were cut. And so we're improving, we're continuing to work to have the operators in sufficient quantity and in the right places. And people, it's better than having people on the road just in case, because if there's a problem with a bus and that we have to go back to the garage and this and that, no, but if we have an operator in a bus nearby, it's more efficient. So we're looking at all this to be able to reach the 100%. I know it will never be possible. We never talk about this here because there's problem with traffic and this and that. But our major issue was with the amount of operators, and I can say that definitely It's a problem that we were able to manage very efficiently. It was a bit painful for our clients, of course, but it's mostly behind us for now. I don't know if that answers your question, but maybe Pat can
That is fine.
complement.
Mr. Chair, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Merci, Commissaire Olson. Conseiller
Thank you,
Fleury.
Commissioner Olson. Councillor Fleury. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Good morning, Mr. Amilcar, Mrs. Amilcar. I'd like to thank you and your team. We've spent a lot of time this summer looking at various elements of the network, the buses, the security, the cleanliness, and I thank you very much for your interest in understanding the dynamics in my area, in the downtown area. I think I wanted to talk about the UPass, and thank you for the answer to Councillor Brockington. In the document, you are predicting the number of clients for the fall UPass. It's rather aggressive. It's almost back to normal. So I'm curious, if you don't have the data at hand, but can you tell us if that volume has been reached for the return to school on the university campus and colleges? That's a good question, Councillor, because we had this discussion, Pat and I, this morning. At the end of this month, we will have concrete data from universities, and we believe that we will be able to get 80 to 85,000 university students that we had. So we're confident that we'll get that. So visually, anyways, I can tell you that for the Ottawa U, it's really impressive there. It's almost back to normal. So I want to understand better the operations. Of course, there'll be an increased use of the light rail stations. We'll need buses too. Did you notice some trends since the return to school, positive trends, or something that we should pay attention regarding volume and availability? Yes, and that's part of the discussions we have every morning before 8 o'clock. I have a meeting with my DLT, and we look at the service of the day before and what we anticipate for the day. And Pat gave us the number, said 78,000 people in the LRT last Thursday. So that's records, really, since the pandemic. So it's a number that we had reached for Canada Day. The service was free, but these are really tangible data now. And several people in my team now are using transit and tell me every day, every time they arrive with a big smile on their face, Renee, everything worked well. And yesterday I went to tour the eastern part of the city, the extension, and I was looking the buses at Blair. They were all full. I was so happy. So yes, we feel that there is renowned interest. We'll touch wood to make sure that this remains positive and continues to grow. But normally we have a service with 11 trains. For the return to school, we had 13 to make sure that people could sit down, that it was friendly, that people can see that we're there for them, and we can adapt to their needs. And the buses are there too. Pat said earlier that we had some requests at the last minute to increase the service for high school students. So we did. We worked with our teams, and I thank them all, the unions too, that really worked closely with us, cooperated. They were open on all opportunities. So everything was done so that we could greet these people and keep them. Now, another question we see on our buses, it says we're recruiting. So is the recruitment going as you planned? Or is there an additional risk factor this fall? I'm just curious. We saw in your deficit statistic that one of the factors was a saving of close to $6 million because of the vacancies. So since the ridership is starting to pick up, I'm wondering, are you where you plan you would be with the recruitment? Well, it remains a challenge because we have many resumes, and when we compile it all, it's going well. I'm very happy. We have quality people, and our structure is solid. Everybody is cooperating, and the priority is going for the teams, the bus teams. Eventually, the Trillium line will open, so we'll need operators there too. So a plan is going along normally. I would have liked to have a little better success rate with the students. We are at 85. I would have rather had 95, but other than that, everything is going very well. I'm very happy and very confident. And the team that we set up for this campaign will bear its fruits because we'll make sure that we will have succession too, because we're talking about bus drivers, but mechanics are also very rare. So we worked with the unions so that we create a process to train our own people internally so that recruitment team will be responsible for finding people like that. So it was a very good investment that my team and I set up. And we're very happy. And yes, we're on the right track with our recruitment. Well, I thank you very much. I'd like to emphasize that you're here for since a few months only. Your energy and your teamwork and your work with the buses, you are candid but very organized, and it doesn't go unnoticed. We appreciate and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So next up will be Councillor Meehan, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I've got some technical issues, so I'm going to stay off screen. Thank you very much to Ms. Amilcar for the update. There are some interesting trends going on, and it's good to see. I hate to bring this up because I know 105 minutes between transfers seems like a lot, but I'm hearing very disgruntled transit users who are, because of the service unreliability, are actually missing that window. I'm wondering if other commissioners are seeing that as well, and if there's any possibility that we can revisit that, at least until the service reliability is increased, so that people can actually make that transfer instead of having to pay twice. I'd say that maybe 2 hours until we see better performance would be a better amount of time. And I would hope this would only be for a little while though. So is there any possibility that we can revisit that?
On the logistical side of revisiting a decision that's already been taken in the budget or by council, I'll have to let the clerk speak to that. On the technical side, I can say that at one point we were working on a direction we had from council last, I'm going to say it was last fall, to make an extension in the transfer validity period. But that was until the trains resumed running last fall, and they did resume, and so that work was stopped at that time. It is technically possible to make extensions to transfer period. However, I will also say that any customer who is not able to complete their trip in that period of time is certainly eligible for a refund on the second fare that was charged to their card. And we will do that very promptly if they get in touch with us. I'm not aware of very many of those experiences having come to our customer service center. We can certainly check the numbers, but any counselor that is getting a comment like that, please refer the customer to us, and we'll make sure that they're taken care of properly.
So can you tell me how they would do that easily? I know that people get home and they're exhausted. The last thing they want to do is start thinking about contacting OC Transpo.
Two easy ways. One single number, which is 613-560-5000. The second easy way is there's a customer contact web form at octranspo.com.
I thank you for that. I would just add my, oh darn, dog. As soon as I start talking, of course, the dogs, it's like being on the telephone. I'll leave it at there. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Scrimsher. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Madame Amical and Pat and the team for your report, Troy, as well. Two questions. One is, September is a very busy month for OC Transpo with students coming back and people coming back from vacation, starting back their routine. Number of issues have been brought to my attention from university students whose routes that they're taking are over capacity. There are people being left behind because buses on their route simply are not big enough to accommodate all the people who are wanting to get on the bus. And one example I'll raise is Route 111, which serves multiple wards. When it goes through the Hogsback community, there are multiple skyscrapers that are filled with university students, Carleton University students, and many concerns about all times of the day where people are left behind. So can you tell me, when OC Transpo is made aware of this information, how quick can you react to add capacity on routes, either larger buses or perhaps even adding a bus to a run?
Chair, c'est clair que bon, je pense que tout le monde ici est au courant que.
I think everyone knows that we have 4 schedules a year. If we want to change these, we have to bring a change to our schedule. But nothing prevents us to send additional buses if we know that there are a surplus, if there are buses available and drivers available. As you know, we had big issues with the CTC. Now we're seeing the light, as I said earlier. It's important for people to call the clientele service number to tell us about the overcapacity buses. And we have supervisors on the road that work in a team of Troy Chargers. So we can pay special attention to this. And if we can, at times, add some buses and drivers who were not supposed to come in, but we will do it. But for now, we're just trying to respect our schedule to deliver the service that was scheduled.
When an operator passes people at bus stops because the bus is full, does the operator have to call that in or inform OC Transpo? Is there any procedure where that real-time experience is being communicated back to OC Transpo, or do you solely wait on passengers to make those service requests?
It's a mix of things. The driver or the supervisor can inform a dispatch. And of course, riders are always welcome to share this information with us. Pat or Troy could perhaps explain this more in detail if I've forgotten something.
I have very little to add. It's just that, there's many ways that we get that information from counts, from customers, from operators, from supervisors. There's a number of ways that operators can relay that information to us. But it helps, I will say it helps to hear from customers as well, because the operator can report on what they see on the bus, what they see at the stop. Customers can see sometimes things that are affecting them, which are further back, like people deciding not to step up to the stop because they see the bus is too busy to get on, something like that. We're super happy to have this problem again after so many months of low ridership.
Okay, I'll park Route 111 with you.
And I would say thank you for letting us know about Route 111 last week, and we're on it already.
Thank you. The last thing I want to raise, and if I don't speak again today, Madame, I want to congratulate you on your first year of service at OC Transpo. I hope you have many years ahead with us. And to my colleagues, thank you for what's been a very challenging term of service on the Transit Commission, and our transit citizen commissioners as well, who have put in a lot of time and effort as well. Thank you all for your service. Certainly learned a lot, and but I want to thank everyone as a team for what we've done over the last 4 years. It has been very challenging. One issue I continuously bring up is bus reliability. I think that without slaying this beast, we will not be as successful as both retaining and recruiting new riders as we have expected in our long range plan. And again, I could be the only member of this commission that believes this, but I don't believe that the macro level metric data we're getting helps me, at least. It doesn't help me understand bus reliability issues to the degree that I'd like to see. And I want to drill down here today and just ask, staff must be aware that there are bus routes in this city that historically are chronically unreliable. And when I use the word unreliable, I mean it fits in that benchmark of being at least 5 minutes or more late consistently. When you know those routes exist, how are you making changes over time to ensure we take a bus route that is consistently late, and we're doing everything we can to shift that bus route into a category that is consistently on time? Because I continue to hear the same bus routes and the same issues from my residents year after year after year. And I don't have the micro level data that explains what's contributing to making bus routes consistently unreliable. Is it scheduling? Is the bus timetable unrealistic? Is there chronic traffic issues? There are many ways that this can be addressed and fixed, but when we're begging residents to take public transit, we want to recruit people to public transit. And I'm saying, if we know we have chronic reliability issues with certain routes that come up over and over and over again, we're not serving the public. We're not serving them well, and we're not serving them if we're not putting the resources in to fix that. So I see this as a major issue for the next commission that needs to tackle. There are many issues, but if you can't get people from their local communities to the transit station or to the LRT station, which is the spine of the network, then they're going to look for alternative modes of transportation. So staff, if you could please comment on this. I know I raise this over and over again, but for me and my residents, it's frustrating if we know there are chronic routes that have chronic challenges, and at least in the public's eyes, the commission is not taking steps to address that. Thank you.
That's time.
Chair, si je peux peut-être donner quelques petites informations.
Mr. Chair, if I could provide you a little bit of information. First of all, thank you, Councillor Brockington. And you've already mentioned this in the past. I remember very well. And I also remember having offered to everyone who wanted additional details. I told them to work with the patch team. I believe Councillor Kavanaugh has already done it. So I would ask you to share the route number, and perhaps one of the patch team member or Pat could perhaps explain to you, or you could explain to us what cancellations you've seen, how punctual these routes have been. And this is information that we provide to the Commission. And it's something that I will eventually provide. In addition to giving the availability of buses, we're also going to tell you about how on time they are. It's important that our buses and trains are on time. I also want us to be able to identify our challenging routes, because sometimes we deploy too many buses, and we bring about our own problems on the road. So I want to be able to share all this data with the Commission, but I would invite you to take the time whenever you're available. We'd be happy to take a look at this data with you. And I would say, I dare say that the ball is in your court, and we would be happy to do this for you.
Thank you. I'll just, yeah, I just,
go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I did not want to overwhelm Pat. I gave Pat one route example, the 85. The data he has provided and his team has been absolutely amazing as far as the level of detail that I've received. I just wanted to pick one route, not to overwhelm the team, but the data obviously exists. And with that data, we can have a further conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. So that concludes the update on the Confederation line and bus service. So now we'll move into the paratransport service verbal update. I'll just remind commissioners that we have one delegation for this subject. So let us get through the delegation before we go to questions of staff. Renee, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Pat will walk through the presentation.
Merci, Renee. Good morning, Transit Commission. I'll just start by, just before we go to the first page, just a reminder that when the motion was adopted by the Transit Commission to make the paratransport update a separate item on each month's agenda, there was also direction for us to report at the September meeting on the priorities that we are currently working on, or that could be issues in the future. So we'll go to the first page and talk about the three main priorities that we're currently working on for paratransport customers. The first is the My Paratransport service, the online booking and ability to see where the trip is as it approaches the customer. As you know, that online application was launched in April, was a major upgrade in the ability for customers to book trips online, and was a new ability for customers to track their trips online. So far, we're up to 7% of trips being booked online, and that's a good number. It may sound low to some people, but it is good. The highest we had heard of from other cities with online booking had been 4%. So that may reflect that Ottawa is a more connected community. It may also reflect just that we've installed a newer version of software that's easier to use. But we'll be continuing to encourage customers to show them that they have an option to book online, which can hold sort of triple benefits. They can book at any time of the day. They don't have to wait for a particular window. They can book more quickly if that's something that they're able to do with their access to computers and to smartphones. And also at the same time, they're also helping other customers, because if anyone who books online is one less person that's in the phone queue, so someone who does have to telephone we can get through slightly more quickly. We've got more steps to come on this. We've got a questionnaire going out to paratransport customers to ask them questions about how their experience has been, or if there's any barriers to them adopting My Paratranspo. We've got promotion among to paratransport customers, and then generally that My Paratranspo is a service that's available. So we've got a video that's out on social media and on octranspo.com. And our next step in improving My Paratranspo is the module that will allow support persons to book trips on behalf of customers. And then the next after that is a reminder of trips that people have booked. The next priority on this page is to get to the point where customers will be able to tap their Presto card on Paratranspo minibuses and taxis. That's coming from one of our two major fare suppliers. Software is well along, not quite ready, but coming soon. Hardware has been slow. These are the actual card readers that we have to install. They're a little bit slow because the worldwide supply chain shortages relating to computer parts. But we're on track, and we're looking forward to this being able to be available later this year or early next. And the third here is the customer service working group, which we've been working on for some time now with groups of about a dozen Paratranspo customers who come and meet with us regularly. We're doing it online, of course. And they give us feedback. We can bounce ideas off them, and that's going very well. And we've used their feedback in a number of positive ways, such as reallocating when we're staffing the call center to get more information than we were seeing in our queue volumes. The customer service working groups have also been able to relay some information out to their community on reminding people that such things as there's no longer a difference at 9 a.m. People can call anytime they want, and that we're largely accommodating every Paratranspo trip request that comes in the day before, and many of the ones that come in on the same day. So just encouraging people to go to My Paratranspo or to call at a time that works for them. More ideas are coming from them, things we're looking at for the future. They're asking about overnight service. They're asking about same-day booking, more same-day booking. They're asking about advanced booking. And we're looking at all of those things along with that group and doing some analysis so that we might be able to make recommendations to council in the future. If we can go to the next slide, please. We'll talk about the performance indicators. One more. Thanks, Eric. The next one, please. There we go. So just generally, the overview is that telephone booking lines are good. I'll show you some details coming up soon. Ridership's recovering a little more quickly on Paratranspo than on the conventional side, and on-time performance is quite good. The next slide, please. We'll go into a little more detail on all of these. On-time performance this year is averaging over 95%. We saw a little bit of a drop in the second 4 months compared to the first 4 months of the year. We think that is as a result of a little more traffic on the roads, a few more customers traveling on Paratranspo as people's travel through all modes comes back as the pandemic, well, we hope recedes, but at least evolves. We'll go into the next slide, please, and talk about telephone response times. Showed quite a jump, a longer wait in August, with some days where we had higher call volumes and a few days where we had customer service representatives in lower number just because of some sickness in the group, and we're watching that trend closely. But at 8 minutes, it's longer than it has been. It's longer than we want it to be, but it's I just want to remind everyone that it's so much less than the 23-minute average that we were having back in 2019 before the pandemic, when the Transit Commission sort of challenged us to bring that down to under 15 minutes. With Paratranspo ridership being up, all of these numbers are positive indicators that when ridership is back to its full levels, the experience for customers should be much better than it was pre-pandemic. And the third slide is to show the number of paratransport, or the next slide, I'm sorry, to show the number of bookings that are coming in each month. You can see the highest in June, a little bit down for the summer. We'll see what the September numbers are around the end of this month. And all going well, all looking the way it is right now, I expect September to be considerably higher than either June or August. And you can see there the little orange part shows the 7% of the bookings. That adds up to 4,100 bookings, 4,100 that were made online, 61,000 that were done by telephone during the month of August. Slide 8, the next slide shows the customer feedback levels, showing some customer complaints per 1,000 paratransport trips, continuing generally as it was, very similar numbers to the rest of the year and a little bit higher numbers from last year. The next slide shows what those conversations with customers have been about. And as you can see, the largest fraction is about service delivery or is about how to book. But you can see that that's changed over time, what those contacts are about. But no major trends there. And then finally, I'll show you paratransport ridership and fare revenue. Ridership still very good, now at 73% of pre-pandemic levels, and much higher than last year and every month. As I said, we'll see how September does, further approaching pre-pandemic levels if it moves up from where it was. And the next slide shows fare revenue, which is tracking very similarly to ridership levels. And that's the end of this presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions about this, Mr. Chair. You're on mute, Mr. Chair. Chair, we still can't hear you, Chair.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I was muted. Let's go to the delegation if we could, and then we'll go to questions of staff. The delegation is Carrie Glennis Elliott from Ottawa Transit Riders. Is she there, Eric? Oh, there we are. Go ahead when you're ready, Carrie.
All right. Thank you very much. Very nice to see all of you. I realize this is the last Transit Commission meeting of this term, but I think all of you have received our invitation for the Transit Challenge, so I will hope that we will see you this week. I'm actually here to talk about accessible transit, and particularly access to accessible taxis. As you know, the Ottawa Transit Riders seeks to be the voice of transit riders, and we've been hearing a lot of stories about the problems with getting accessible taxis. Paratransport doesn't run 24 hours a day, and so people do need service late at night. You may have heard a media story earlier this summer about a gentleman who spent the night in the lobby of a hotel because he couldn't get an accessible taxi. And on Saturday at Horizon Fest, I spoke to a lady who had a similar problem this summer where she wanted to get to the airport for an early morning flight, and it was before Paratransport starts work. And she called all the taxi companies and there were no accessible taxis available for her. She was quite panicked. I know that she actually spoke to a few people who are on this commission, so you're familiar with this particular issue. At one point, she thought about taking Paratransport to the airport the night before and spending the night in the airport in order to make her flight. She ultimately didn't have to do that, but a lot of people are talking about the difficulty with getting accessible taxis. Part of the problem, of course, is that the taxi companies are being squeezed by Uber and Lyft, and they're not finding it financially feasible to offer these accessible taxis. I don't think this is a problem that's going to be solved by the free market exclusively. I don't think this is really the responsibility of the federal government or the provincial government. I think this is squarely on the municipal government. And I realize this is the last Transit Commission of this term. And so the people who are sitting here are probably not going to be making decisions. But I think most of you are also running for election. And so you plan on being on the next city council. What I'd like is for there to be a little bit of brainstorming and a little bit of an idea or a proposal about what the city is going to do to incentivize taxi companies to offer accessible taxis or to offer paratranspo overnight. Again, from our members, we're hearing stories about people feeling very anxious about being out late at night, maybe going to the hospital in the evening, and worried that if they miss the deadline when paratranspo is running, they might have to spend the night somewhere that they don't particularly want to spend because they can't get accessible taxis. And none of us here sitting in this group would ever put up with this situation. This is not an acceptable situation. So that's really what my argument is. I'm speaking for people who are members of the Para-Parity campaign and people that I've simply spoken to, that I would really like a proposal for what is the city going to do about accessible taxis, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And seeing no questions for the delegate, thank you for coming out today. So now we'll go to questions of staff, please, on the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Pat, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Wright Gilbert.
Sorry, I was searching for the button to click. I only have for one question. When it comes to the number of complaints that we've received from customers about paratransport service, are you able to sort of compare and contrast that number of complaints with respect to the percentage of higher ridership we've had since last year? Like, I'd like to see a comparison between how much our ridership has gone up since this period last year and how the complaints have also gone up. Does that make sense? Sorry. I'm trying to.
Mr. Chair, the numbers that are shown on slide 8, and maybe Eric, could you flip slide 8 back on the screen? These numbers are per ridership. So these numbers are correct. This is after the number of rides. So this is the number of complaints per 1,000 trips. And you can see that there's generally a trend, not a consistent trend, but the number is generally going down as ridership has been going up.
Right. No, I got that. I was just trying to see in comparison to ridership. Are you able to sort of provide an overview as, sorry, I said I was only asking one question and I totally lied. Are you able to provide an overview as to the increase, the reason for the increase in complaints in August of this year? Were there common complaints or?
We can say that there's, the slide that was on slide 9 showed that the composition of the complaints in August was a little more towards questions about booking or asking just general information questions than it was about service delivery. In July, it had been more about service delivery. But if you look back at, I don't know if you have a copy, I'm sorry.
I do, yeah. I'll open it up.
Page 9, you can see that the biggest numbers were when things were uncertain back last year, when we had the traffic, when we had the, sorry, not traffic, when we had the train service down for several weeks, when in the spring, when we had or late winter, when we had the roads closed downtown because of the protests and our inability to serve customers there. We're into a more normal operation with a city that's flowing better than it was during either of those two times, and it looks stable. The fluctuation has been small. The overall slight trend has been that as ridership is going up, complaints are going down. But we can't draw a link between these. We can just sort of say that they are happening at the same time. I imagine that as more and more people are going back to work in the office, going back to learn at school, they're coming back to a system which they may not have used for a couple of years or may not have used as much as right now, and they may have observations or questions they want to share with us.
And thank you for that. One last question. I know I totally lied when I said I had one question. I apologize, Mr. Scrimger. Just you raised the occupation of the city or part of the city in February, and that we weren't able to deliver paratransport customers, either pick them up or deliver them to their locations, their delivery locations. Obviously, because the streets were inundated with some people. Have there been any lessons learned from that experience that we can apply moving forward? I mean, I'd like to hope that this never happens again, but I mean, it might. So are there any lessons learned from that experience specific to paratransport that we're able to apply moving forward so that we are able to respond to our customers' needs, even when we're in a occupation type situation?
Yes, absolutely. And we put that message out strongly at the time, and we just want everyone to know. And if there's ever any other reason why we aren't able to get our vehicles to where people are traveling from or to, we'll use the same message again, and we'll appreciate anyone who relays it. That call us, tell us what you need, and we'll work out with you, individual people, on an individual phone call. Where are we able to pick you up? Where can you get to? Where can we get you? Where are you going? We'll get you the closest we can. The message to all customers using paratransport: if there's ever a street closure or an access change to a building for any reason at all, call us and we'll work it out. We'll do with you the best we can.
I think our paratransport customers appreciate that dedication. So thank you very much, Mr. Scrimger. I'm not going to ask you another question, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up is Commissioner Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. Following our delegation, I think it would be important to get an update on accessible taxis and what we're doing to improve the service for those that are not using, they can't use paratransport because it's off hours.
So, Commissioner, I think that's what Community and Protective Services has oversight of the taxi industry, and in particular the accessible plates.
So we can't even though they should be complimentary services, we can't ask it at Transit Commission.
Pat, is this something that you have a liaison with, or is it better to raise it at Community and Protective Services? Because the councillor's right, there is certainly a relationship here, but what's the reporting?
Yes, we've got obviously a continuous working relationship with all of our colleagues at the city, including those in EPS and specifically in bylaw who apply the policies of council as they regulate the taxi industry. And as you know, council's decision to, as they delegate different tasks, different committees and commission, is that question goes to Community and Protective Services Committee. So that's where the policy discussions have been occurring, and perhaps I wouldn't want to say what the terms of reference are for each of the committees in a future term of council, but we'll work closely with them. The staff we work with at CPS know our needs well, as we are a major customer of the taxi companies. We hire a lot of their accessible taxis to move paratransport customers, and so we're engaged, but we're not a regulator.
Okay, understood. Is there any thought about extending the hours of paratransport operating to take some relief off of the accessible taxis?
As I mentioned earlier, that's a matter that we've been discussing with the customer working group, but our question there is going to be what's the part of our analysis that we're going to have to do is what's the scale of this transportation need and what's the best way of addressing it. We've never found that paratransport is a way to take the load off the taxi industry. Paratransport, by comparison, is a paratransport minibuses are by comparison a more expensive way of moving a trip, and they're thus requiring more municipal subsidy than if we use a contracted cab. The other consideration there is that the taxi companies do have an infrastructure set up for 24-hour operation. We don't at this point. So if we were to add the costs of overnight staffing for all of the support functions for Paratranspo, the cost per trip could be quite high, and therefore could draw resources away from the busier times of the day. So there's no easy answer to this, but it clearly is a question that that council may want to grapple with in the next term.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, that concludes the update on Paratransport service. Our next item is the 2022 Transit Operating and Capital Budget Q2 status report. And we have no presentation, no delegations, so we can go directly to questions of staff if everybody's ready. Commissioner Wright-Gilbert.
Thank you. I actually found the button this time. I only have, I want to be truthful about the number of questions I have. I only have 3 planned questions. We'll see where this goes. So I looked over the status report, and there were a number of things that were, to use an overused word, concerning to me. So I think we'll all recall when we were debating the 2022 budget, I and other commissioners such as Councillor Brockington and others raised concerns about the rather optimistic look that was being put into the ridership increases projected for 2022. I looked at the numbers in the report. The 2022 budget projected a COVID-19 related revenue loss of $41.78 million. But our actual year-to-date revenue loss is already over and above that at $47.618 million. And the anticipated year-end forecasted deficit is $96.471 million, which is over twice the amount projected in the 2022 budget. So assuming we receive the balance of the Safe Restart Agreement funding, of which only $11 million has been received, so the balance of which being $41.748 million. Where will the remaining $54.723 million deficit come from? What are we going to have to cut, and what are we postponing?
Commissioner, I can start, and my colleague, Ms. Amalkar, can also add to my answer. At this point, we are expecting to receive additional funds through the Safe Restart Agreement. What we don't know, and we conveyed in the report, is what that amount is. I think that's really clear. What's happening at this point in time is the province is looking at the program. They're determining how the funds are going to be allocated to, I'm going to say, the municipalities most in need. My expectation is that we will receive more than what we thought we had projected. And my hope is that we will receive enough money to cover all of the losses with respect to what's happened and the impact that we've had on COVID. If we don't, if you recall, we had a plan. We talked about multiple layers of that plan during budget time. I refer to them as Plan A, Plan B, and Plan C. So Plan A is obviously in place in terms of that Safe Restart Agreement. Plan B are the financial mitigations that we have in place today. So it's pausing some of that discretionary spending. You see in the report that we also have savings with respect to some of the vacancies that we have. We also have lower fuel costs due to some of the hedging that we're doing and usage and things like that. And worst case scenario is that we have reserves that we can borrow from that are elsewhere in the organization. That's not where we want to go. Our preference obviously is to receive funds through the Safe Restart Agreement to cover that gap. And then we had also set a plan forward in terms of what some of those reductions might look like. There was a report that was approved by council that sort of set the framework for that. And that's really the worst case scenario. I'll just pass it over to Ms. Amalkar to see if she has anything else to add.
Merci, Chair. Merci, Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Wendy. Well, you've said it all. What I could add is that with the teams, we're now looking at how we can do things better, because we are can't just wait to get money from the government. We want to review our processes, and we are looking through the budget exercise, looking at how each department could contribute additionally, and not necessarily will result in $50 million saving. But I just want you to understand that we're not just waiting for government money. We're also doing our share in this exercise.
Merci, Madame Amilcar. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Mrs.
that.
Amilcar.
That sort of leads me to my next question about overtime. So I took a look at the overtime document. So it's the transit customer systems and planning. Sorry, that's the overtime document. So just to give you a brief sort of overview, transit customer systems and planning has spent 227% of the amount allocated for overtime in the budget. Similarly, transit service delivery and rail ops has spent 238% of their allocated overtime amount. Safety, regulatory training and development has spent 158% of the allocated amount in the budget. Can you please provide details as to why so much overtime was required for each department, and what the forecast is for the remainder of the year, given that they are over budget in their overtime?
Generally speaking, Mr. Chair, when we call for overtime, it's because we have some work to be done that was not planned. The best example is with the convoy that we had downtown this winter. And it's a lack of staff also. If I refer to Omicron in December, we had impacts in January and February, so we had to use overtime. We talked a lot about CTC. We saw that we were short of drivers, so we had to use overtime. The good news is that when you look at the budget as such, my goal is not to always turn to overtime to provide the service. I want to have staff present that will do their time, and then people will go home after their shift. But that's my first goal. But when we use overtime, and Wendy said it earlier, it costs less to use overtime for some things than to have additional staff on site. So I'd rather have people on site, of course, but it's a balance that is always seen everywhere, especially in a transit area. The best example I could give you is the mechanics coming back from their summer holidays. So the maintenance work must be done. So we will be using overtime here to make sure that all the repairs are done on time and that the buses are always available. So we will have to use overtime, whether because of a workload increase or because of absences that are higher than the norm.
Okay. Putting aside that you could plan for summer holidays, since theoretically you know about them far enough in advance that you could plan for mechanical work to be done ahead of time so you wouldn't have to use overtime. For example, safety, regulatory training and development, they've spent 158% of their allocated amount of overtime. Why is that?
Well, that team is responsible for drivers training. We've said it many times at the Transit Commission that with CTC, we had great challenges for the recruitment of new operators, and they have to be trained. And that's the team responsible for their training. And actually, I want to thank them because they were always available to assist us in setting up a recruitment plan.
Okay, I agree with you that training of bus drivers is important. But my point is that we knew that we were going to have to hire these drivers last year before this budget was made. We knew that. We knew when Mr. Manconi was still around. He told us every single meeting that this new federal break plan, we're going to need to hire more drivers. So why wasn't that planned for in the 2022 budget? And now we're sitting at mid-year, 158% over budget. This is my question is, I feel as though there's not adequate planning and foresight being put into these budgets. And I'd like to, for the next term of council, for the next commission, that there to be a lot more planning and foresight put into these budgets based on a realistic outlook rather than one that is a bit more optimistic. My last question is actually just about the second quarter works in progress. I took a look at, typically when I look at this, I look at see which projects are over budget. We're tight on money. We all know that. We know about our deficit. And so we have to be a bit of a budget hawk when we look at these. One that stuck out to me was the rail radio integration, which is nearly $200,000 over budget. I do note that there are apparently recoveries and revenues to offset the deficit. I did notice that in the sheet, but I want to understand how this project is nearly $200,000 over budget.
Je peut-être me référer à Troy.
Maybe I'll refer to Troy. Maybe you can help me with this one.
I can give you the line item number if that's helpful.
I have it, 907372.
That is correct. Thank you.
I can say that I don't know the specifics of that account. I do know there's a note there that says that the higher cost is being covered from other sources. I will make myself familiar with both of those, but I'll also say that in the current year, I think everyone will know that technology costs have gone up considerably from the year in which some of these capital projects were costed and approved. The pandemic has driven a lot of technology costs up. I don't know for sure whether that's the effect here, but we are seeing that in many of our hard construction projects and in many of our technology projects, that costs are just not where they were at the time these projects were approved. I will look into the details of this, and if there's anything notable, I'll be sure to share it with the commissioner and anyone else who's interested.
Thank you. I can appreciate that technology costs are going up. I think we all know that from attempting to purchase personal items or items for businesses. So I can appreciate that. What I will say is this: we've been in the pandemic for 2.5 years. Technology costs have been going up since essentially the start of the pandemic. When staff and others are reviewing the budget for 2022, I would assume that there is a mechanism to review existing works in progress or planned works and update their amount for approval. And so I go back to my previous comment about some foresight and some planning so that we don't end up in a situation where we have a number of projects that are over budget. Again, I understand that this project, there are some recoveries and revenues to offset the price, but just generally across the budget, I think that some foresight exercises and planning exercises and really being realistic about our situation would help us to develop a more realistic budget so that we are not over costs on overtime and projects and severely underestimating the drop in ridership and how much that's going to cost us. So I would appreciate if you could send me that information. Obviously, anyone else who's interested, I suspect Councillor Brockington might be interested. And I do appreciate it. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
That's time.
And Mr. Chair, we can, Ms. Stephenson can say more and better explain it than I, but as you know, Mr. Chair, we do bring reports to you regularly if changes are required in the financing of any of the capital projects. Some of these capital projects that are on this page, the lower number ones are at the top because they're more and more years old. That radio integration project wasn't wrapped up yet, but that was a fundamental part of getting O Train Line 1 up and running. So that original approval could easily have been from somewhere back in 2013, 2015. I'll get the details, but that exactly what the commissioner is suggesting is the work that we bring to you regularly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scrivener. Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to see the city treasurer here. Madam Treasurer, when we were talking about the draft 2022 budget, I asked you a set of questions about when the federal government would provide us funds in 2022 to offset known deficits that we were going to run and we're going to run across the country. And I understand your answer to be that the check was imminently going to be sent. I could be wrong. I've raised this in the winter of 2022. I've raised this in the spring and now in the late summer. When do we expect to be paid by the federal government this fiscal year to offset our projected deficit?
Thanks, Councillor, for the question. And it is a very difficult one to answer. I'm going to be very honest with you. Each time we talk about it, there's an expectation that we're going to receive information on our allocation. The latest information that we do have, and I had conveyed this previously to Mayor and Council, we know now that the federal government and the province have entered into a formal agreement where this fund is confirmed. What we don't know, as I said, and I know you don't want to hear this again, is what that number is going to be. And I do not have a date. My best guess of the situation is that we need to get through the approval of the provincial budget. Once that is done, I suspect we will receive some information. What I've heard from staff is that they are going through the program and making all the program requirements and qualifications. They will not share that information with us because it's not final, and I expect it needs to go for approval prior to any communication that will go out to municipalities. I am confident that we will receive money. I just can't give you a number, and I'm sorry, but I cannot give you a date.
During our 2021 fiscal year, when did we receive federal funds to offset our deficit? Was it throughout the year? Was it at the end of the year? When did those monies come forward?
2 times, I believe, during the year, Councillor. I would have to dig up those dates to get them for you definitively. But I want to say, I think in the spring, summer, and also fall. But I can get those and convey that with you.
Are you confident we're on the right track now, or is there anything the mayor and or chair of the Transit Commission can do with their elected counterparts at the federal level to expedite this process? Or do we just have to go through, as you said, wait for the budget to pass, wait for the provincial government to get an order? We're on track. You're comfortable where we are.
Yeah, I believe there's lots of conversations that are happening through the Big City Mayor's Caucus. Some of that also happened at AMO as well with respect to conveying this information and the conversations at a political level. I believe they are ongoing. And so my suggestion would be, I don't think there's anything else that we need to do at this point. Everyone is very aware. It's just a question of, I'm going to say, writing that letter and signing it and sending it.
Any indication about what the province or feds will do in 2023?
No, there is no indication as of yet. There is some lobbying that's going on, I believe, at the Big City Mayor's Caucus as well with respect to 2023. I know the City of Toronto has been very vocal with respect to the impacts that they're seeing and that they will need assistance. Some other municipalities will also as well. So those conversations have started, but nothing has been confirmed as of yet.
Okay, because we're not too far off from thinking about, I'm sure staff have already began quite some time ago, that the process to put together the 2023 budget, not just OC Transpo's budget, but all the other departments. And we need clarity, or at what point are the taps going to run dry, and the feds and province say, listen, we've helped you out for X number of years. It's now time, municipalities, to balance your own budgets. That's going to be very difficult. But okay, I appreciate the information about 2022. I remain hopeful that those monies will come forward. But the later we get in the year, the more worried I become. But I appreciate the information. Thank you.
My commitment to you and to all of Mayor and Council is, as soon as we have that information, it will be shared.
That's it, Councillor Brockington. You're good. Okay, Councillor Kavanagh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Brockington raised what I was going to ask. It just feels like we're going to be in a begging mode every year. That's what I think our worry is, because I don't see a change in the pattern. We do need that support from the feds, and I appreciate the big city mayors are getting together to discuss it, because clearly this is not just an Ottawa phenomena, though we're probably one of the most impacted by federal government decisions, and I'm sure that'll come forward. So when is the meetings with the big mayors, just so I know when that's happening?
Councillor, I don't have the dates of the meetings. I'm sure you could liaise with the mayor's office to determine when those are set.
Okay, I think that they'll all be singing from the same songbook, but we are heavily impacted, and clearly this is going to be a trend. This is going to be the pattern, especially if there's decisions to have a hybrid system for workers. So that's got to be a major part of the discussion, and of course it has an effect on all industry, including high tech, because they're making the same decisions. So, but we need that service. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I just want to check in with Councillor Curry and Fleury, because at the start of the meeting, you had questions that you thought might come up here under this item. Did you want to ask any questions right now?
No, those were covered earlier. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curry. Is Councillor Fleury still with us, or I don't see him? Okay, then that's going to, is this report received then?
Received.
Received, thank you. Okay, next up is the status update on motions on inquiries. Is there any questions to staff on this? Okay, is the report received?
Received.
Thank you. There's no in-camera items. Are there any notices of motion? None? Okay, thank you. Are there any inquiries?
Chair, I do have one.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding Herdman Station. I'll just read my inquiry. Are there plans in place to improve Herdman Station? Are there plans when the LRT Phase 2 opens to incorporate improvements in this station? Since the opening of the LRT 3 years ago, passengers have raised concerns with the station as follows. 1, scaffolding corridor leading to bus shelters, which is aesthetically unappealing. 2, lack of benches at bus stops. 3, lack of covered areas when passengers wait for buses. 4, the distance from the LRT station to the final bus stop, the far west of Herdman Station. And finally, in Herdman Station itself, the north-facing stairwell is open to the elements. Will OC Transpo plan to make a capital investment to enclose this side of the station and protect passengers ascending the stairs from snow, ice, rain, and other unpleasant weather-related conditions? Thank you, Chair, and I will email this to the committee coordinator.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Okay, number 11, is there any other business? No, okay, I'd like to take a moment here if I could and just say a few words. First off, I want to thank my Vice Chair, Councillor Cloutier, for all his help during this term. I'm going to vote for you for the best Vice Chair and appreciate your help. Also want to thank Eric and the clerk staff for all the work they do for us behind the scenes to help these meetings go as smoothly as they can and to get us all the information possible before the meetings start. You've been a lot of help, and so thank you, Eric, and thank you to the clerk. Also, on the matter of staff, I also want to thank Matt Gravel from the Mayor's office. He's been very helpful to us in that same capacity. Also, Renee, Pat, Troy, Kim, and Jim, and all the other folks at OC Transpo, thank you for doing the best possible job you could for our ridership and for this commission taking the time once a month to meet with us and making sure we're updated through memos in between meetings. I really appreciate it, and congratulations, Renee, on your 1 year anniversary coming up. It has been a pleasure to work with you. And then finally, I also want to thank our riders themselves, because we've tested their patience as they've joined us on what can only be described as a roller coaster-like experience, facing one challenge after another this term. Who could have predicted all the things that came out for us? So I just would like to extend my sincere thanks to our riders as well. So can we ask for a motion to adjourn, please? Vice Chair?
At the Transit Commission meeting of Wednesday, September 14th, be adjourned.
Okay, thank you. At this point, the next meeting will be scheduled in the new term of council, and the media availability will start in 15 minutes. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Merci.
Bye-bye.